Hello, Professor Fox and fellow classmates. Today I will be discussing an ethical dilemma that occurred to me and that I was faced with in my field placement in this semester. So, the story was like this. I have a client who, upon the initial intake session, the mother reported that he has a very strained relationship with his father and, needs psychotherapy to help support him through and to, properly manage and, productively manage his relationship with his father. So I met with the client, and, the client told me over the course of many sessions many different things that the many different troubling interactions that he's had with his father. His father screams at him. His father tells him, to be quiet even when he's not saying anything, or to, stop misbehaving even when he's behaving. So he has a very strained relationship with his father. And, he made that very clear. And at one point, after, seeing this client many times, the father got my number, and he contacted me, and he said, "I want to meet you for a collateral session." Okay. So I met with him, and when we, get into the collateral session, the first thing he says to me is, "Tell me what my son says about me during therapy, and I want to know what he says in general." And immediately I was faced with a quandary. What do I do? Do I tell him? Do I not tell him? And the reason I consider this an ethical dilemma is because, on one hand, right, I have, my commitment to this client, to this client's trust. He comes to me, to, with his mother. His mother waits outside for him. He has told me he would never come if it was, with his father. He told me that, he's spoken confidence with people, staff at school, and they've told his father things, and it upset him. And, he really, makes it very clear that he, comes to me confidentially and, from his father, and doesn't want his father to know what we're talking about. So on one hand, I should definitely not tell his father. But then on the other hand, I, this kid is a minor, right? So, and he lives with his father. Their parents aren't separated, and he lives with his mother, and they're not divorced, and he lives with his mother. He lives together with both of them. So the father is, his father, his guardian, one of his guardians, and he's a minor, and the father has a right to know what his son is saying in therapy. So, correspondingly, obviously, I became aware of this issue through setting up this collateral session, and, him asking me this, it just right away provoked the, issue, like, what do I do? Um, so, the question was, right, the next question is, how did I assess this issue? And did I use the ethical decision making framework model? And the answer is yes, I definitely used the ethical decision making framework model. I, thought about what the ethical dilemma is. I clearly articulated, the professional values that are in conflict. I clearly articulated to myself, thinking about the various different, professional values that are in conflict, my personal values, what's personally pushing me. And, is there a conflict between my personal values and, my ethical values? Is there something telling me that I should do this from, within my own maybe anxiety or nervousness, like, oh, you asked me this, what do I do? And, which way to go? And is that conflicting with what's actually proper, or what's the right way to go about it? And then there was obviously, consulting the code of ethics, which is, what I did. But in the moment, obviously, when faced with this, I wasn't sure what to do, and I didn't want to, I wasn't aware, I didn't know this was going to happen, so I just didn't say anything. I kind of redirected the session to other things, so that afterwards I can have, ample time to, consult the code of ethics and do the proper research and consult with my supervisors to see what to do and how to go about it. And that's what I did. So firstly, I consulted the code of ethics, and I found two ethical standards that, supported me to not tell the father. Number one is the ethical standard 1.01, that a social worker has commitment to clients, which involves, making the interests of the client primary, right? The primary interests that matter are, the client's interests. And in this case, this, client was coming for support, and that support involves not telling the father, like, he can be able to come to me and speak freely, and know that there's going to be no repercussions, that his father's going to find out about it. And I have a commitment to this client's interests, those interests. And then so in that sense I should definitely not tell the father. And then there's also another ethical standard that's more directly connected with this, which is the ethical standard 1.07 of privacy and confidentiality, which involves respecting my client's privacy and confidentiality. And he's coming here with privacy and confidentiality with his mother, not with his father. Clearly stated he doesn't want his father knowing about this. So he has the right to privacy and confidentiality. I should not tell his father. However, on the other hand, there's an ethical value of the dignity and worth of a person, right? Now, he's a minor, and the father is, one of his guardians. The father has dignity, and, I should treat him in a caring and respectful manner, as the value states. So, that would involve me, taking into account that he has the right to know and want to know what his son is, talking about. So in that sense, maybe I should tell him to respect his dignity, and, especially being that the fact that even more so his mother knows everything that's going on. So it's like you're telling her, but you're not telling him. Like, besides his own inherent dignity, it's also like versus her, dignity. She has, the right to know everything, and he doesn't. Like, he lives with both of them. Like, why should she have a right more than him? So in that sense, to respect his dignity, maybe I should tell him. So that was the ethical dilemma. So who did I involve? I involved a few people. I started with my practicum instructor, my field instructor, and then my on-site supervisor, and then my director. So firstly, my field instructor, he told me that, and they all gave me unique advice. So the field instructor told me that you should ask the father, put it into his court and say, you obviously want the best for your son. You want the best for my client. You want him to be able to manage this situation in the most productive way. Do you think that by me telling you what he's saying in the session, and then if he finds out somehow through you, maybe by mistake telling him, or if you tell him, whatever, that's going to hinder upon our relationship, our therapeutic relationship that we've made, and the trust that I've built with him, and he's probably never going to want to see me, and I won't be able to help him. He won't be able to get the services that he needs. Do you think that's something that's, a problem? Like, would you maybe reconsider wanting to know what he's saying during the session? So that was what my field instructor told me to do. And then my on-site supervisor also stated that, like I had mentioned before, the commitment to clients, like, you have a commitment to do the best for this client. So you're not a reporter. You don't have to report to the son what you're telling the father, or what the father, what you're going to tell him, what the son says. Whatever you feel is best for the client, that's what you got to do. So if you feel it's best for the client, maybe to tell the father these things so you can gain more insight and be able to, help the client better, then do it. But if you feel that it's going to, make it much more of a chaotic situation at home by telling, the father what he said, and then the father's going to, come back on him, and, and there's going to be more fights, and it's going to be worse off for the client, then I shouldn't tell him. So that was what my on-site supervisor said. And then finally, my director told me that, similar to what I mentioned about the dignity and worth of the person, that the father, does have the right to know. So I should tell him a little bit, but not everything, because I don't want to break my, relationship. So things that are kind of general, but then kind of redirect it to other things, maybe about when I'm doing the collateral sessions with the father, like things about him maybe, and also things that can just also help me toward helping the client. Maybe if I find out certain things that the father communicates, I can utilize that to go ahead and, help the client better. If I see some sort of communication aspect from the father, I can use that and tell the client to guide the client with communication, more effective communication with the father through that. So something like that. So that was what my director told me. Now, in the future, right, what I would do differently, in a similar situation if I was faced with it, is I would be calmer, because I was like very nervous and I freaked out and like didn't know which way to go, and such mannerisms can cause dysfunctionality. Like, just you're not going to do the right thing because you're just so nervous and worried about what's going to be and what's going to happen and what to do and how to, so I would be calmer. I would just, okay, let's, this happened, let's take it slowly, let me think what to do properly and be able to more, effectively and productively handle the situation. And then the valuable lesson that I learned from this assignment, is that deep reflection on therapeutic occurrences, whether it's like therapeutic session with the client or a collateral session, it really helps to gain insight into myself as a therapist and insight into the client. So like, it really helps me to, understand it better, like, really doing research and ethically, weighing various different things that I did, or it helps to gain a deeper insight into myself as a therapist, to know where I stand and how I operate in certain situations, and what my personal values are. So this assignment really got me to think about that and helped me with that, and also helped me to understand my relationship to the client in a better manner. So that was a valuable lesson that I learned. Now, lastly, we were instructed also to research the New York Office of Professions Enforcement Actions. And I did quite a bit of research all the way back to July 2021. And I found a social worker who committed, a violation of, as it states over here, licensee admitted to the charge of failing to properly address sharing of information between adults attending family therapy and failing to appropriately handle sensitive material and information. So I thought that this was very similar to what I was dealing with. The dilemma of whether or not to share the information, the confidential information that my client shared with me with the father. Maybe he has the right because he's the father, the kid's a minor, the client's a minor. So, but this social worker went ahead and actually, admitted to this violation, of sharing, not properly addressing sharing of information. And I think that the ethical standard, that this social worker violated was the 1.07, the ethical standard 1.07 of privacy and confidentiality. So the social worker went ahead and shared information in a manner that was not proper. Sensitive material that was shared as well in an improper manner. So I believe that, this social worker violated that ethical standard of privacy and confidentiality, 1.07 ethical standard. So, and again, that's very similar to what we're dealing with here, with sharing the information that the client is sharing with me with his father. So this is my presentation, and I thank you all for listening, and I look forward to hearing your feedback. Make it a great day.